Hi, third grade. Today we are doing lesson 12.4, describe sides of polygons. If you need me to slow down, if you need to pause this video at any time, please do that. You can take as much time on this as you need. So, we are talking about types of lines. There's 3 different types of lines. This says, look at the polygon. How many pairs of sides are parallel? We need to know what parallel is. These 2 lines, right here and right here, are parallel. That means they are above each other and they will never touch. Even if it keeps going, they're not going to run into each other. So they are the same distance apart the whole time. So there is 1 or 2 sides that are parallel in this polygon. How do we know that this is a polygon? Well, there's 2 ways that we know it's a polygon. We know it's a polygon because it is closed and it's made up of line segments. We know that line segments are straight lines, they're not curved, and this shape is closed because it starts and ends at the same point. So, the 3 types of lines are intersecting lines, perpendicular lines, and parallel lines. Intersecting lines are lines that cross or meet. Intersecting lines form angles. So they cross and they go around through each other. So over here, the orange and the blue line segments meet to form an angle. Right here's my angle. Remember when we learned about angles? Right angles, greater than angles, and less than angles? So the orange and blue line segments meet and form an angle. So they are intersecting. So those types of lines that kind of form and make kind of like an X. The next one is perpendicular. Think about what we remembered from that. That box tells us something. That box tells us that this is a right angle. A right angle is made when you have perpendicular lines. Intersecting lines that cross or meet to form right angles. So when you have lines that make right angles, it's called perpendicular. They have to form right angles. They're called intersecting, but this one has a right angle, so it's called perpendicular. Both of these types of lines cross each other. This one does not form a right angle. Perpendicular does form a right angle, always. So, the red and blue line segments meet to form a right angle, so they are perpendicular. The last kind of lines are parallel. Lines that never cross or meet are always the same distance apart, are parallel. They do not form any angles. They don't form any angles because they never touch. Parallel lines will never ever touch. They will always be the same distance apart. So, this green line and the blue line segments would never cross or meet. If they kept going, they would still be the same distance apart. So they are parallel. So we know back at this shape, there is 2 sides that are parallel, but it means it has 1 pair. Because when you have a pair, it's 2 things, just like a pair of socks. So we have 2 sides that are parallel, which means it's 1 pair of parallel sides. All right. Draw a polygon with only 1 pair of parallel sides. Then draw a polygon with 2 pairs of parallel sides. So we need to draw one that has 1 pair of parallel sides. So I'm going to draw my parallel sides first. Right here. They're parallel with each other. And then I'm going to connect the 2. These 2 sides are parallel. These 2 are not, because if this kept going, those 2 lines would run into each other. These 2 sides are parallel, not those 2. Now I need to draw a polygon with 2 sets of parallel sides. So there's 1 set of parallel sides. There's my other set. On that, this side and this side are parallel to each other. And this side and this side are parallel to each other. So this one has one set of parallel sides. This one has two sets of parallel sides. All right, number 1, look at this picture. Which sides are parallel? So you have the sides are lettered, A, B, C, and D. A, which side is A parallel to? A is parallel to C, so A and C are parallel right here. Is there anything else that's parallel? B and D are parallel. These two sides will never touch. These two sides will never touch. They are both parallel. 2, 3, and 4 says, look at the green sides of the polygon. So we're looking at the green sides. Tell if they appear to be intersecting, perpendicular, or parallel. So, number 2. Here's my green sides. Are those two lines ever going to touch? They will not touch, so those are called parallel. Number 3, I'm looking at this side and this side. Those are touching, but are they touching at 90 degrees? Is there a little box here? Are they straight up and straight across? Or is it just crossing each other, not at a right angle? It is just intersecting. Because on the other page, we learned intersecting cross, but perpendicular are intersecting, but they have a right angle. And this side, this angle, is not a right angle, so it's only intersecting lines. Now 4, here's one side, here's the other side. Well, they're touching, so we know it's not parallel, so I can't say parallel. But if I flip back over here, a right angle means it's perpendicular. But if it's perpendicular, it's also intersecting. And if I look, this is straight down, straight across. There's a right angle right there. So we know it's perpendicular, but it's also intersecting. Because perpendicular lines are intersecting lines. They just have a right angle. All right. Look at the green sides of the polygon. Tell if they are intersecting, perpendicular, or parallel. Write all the words that describe the sides. So same thing that we just did. So this is my green line here, green line here. They're not touching. That means they are parallel. Green line here, green line here. They're touching, so it's not parallel, and they're straight. They have a corner. That is a right angle, so it is perpendicular and intersecting because they are touching and they will cross each other. Number 7. Here are my 2 green lines. They are touching, but this is a greater than a right angle. So if it's a greater than a right angle, it's not perpendicular because perpendicular has right angles. This is not a right angle, so it can only be called intersecting. All right. This is the homework page. This one's already done for us. The dotted lines are not touching, so they are called parallel. These are my dotted lines. Oh, I see that they form a right angle. So I know that this is perpendicular. And we learned that if it's perpendicular, that means they're touching, which means it's also intersecting. Here are my dotted lines. Look at that. Does that form a right angle? That's a less than a right angle. So that is not a right angle, which means it's only intersecting. Same thing with number 4. They touch, so it's not parallel, but is this a right angle? That's a less than right angle, so they are intersecting. Look at my dotted lines, they're touching. Is that a right angle or not? It is a right angle, so it's perpendicular and intersecting. Because it has a right angle and they're crossing each other. Look at my 2 dotted lines. Those 2 are not going to touch. If they're not touching, that means they are parallel. All right. Looking at these shapes, which shapes have parallel sides? Look at A. Does A have any parallel sides? A has some parallel sides, the top and the bottom. So A has parallel sides. What about B? Does B have any parallel? B does not have any parallel because this one has nothing above it. This one has nothing to the side of it. What about C? C does. The top and the bottom and my sides are all parallel. So A, C, and D. Does D have any parallel sides? D has a parallel side, top and the bottom. So A, C, and D all have parallel sides. Which shapes have perpendicular sides? We know perpendicular means it has to have a right angle. So is there any right angles in A? No right angles in A. What about B? There's a right angle in B right there. So B. What about C? There's 4 right angles in C. So C has perpendicular sides. And what about D? No right angles in D. So just B and C. All right. How many pairs of parallel sides does the quadrilateral have? So let's look at the top and the bottom first. Top and the bottom. Are they ever going to touch? They will not. So those 2 are parallel. And let's look at our sides now. One side, second side. Are they ever going to touch? Nope. There's parallel. So how many pairs? Remember, a pair means 2. So this is a pair. And this is a pair. So there are 2 pairs. Number 2, which sides are parallel? Let's look at A first. There's A. What side is parallel to A? Remember, parallel means they will not touch. A and C are parallel. Now let's look at B. Is anything parallel to B? D is parallel to B. So A and C and B and D are parallel to each other. A and C are parallel. B and D are parallel. Mr. Lance designed a class banner shaped like the polygon shown below. What is the name of the polygon? We know we find out the name by counting the sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What's a 5-sided shape called? 5-sided shape is called a pentagon. How many angles greater than a right angle does this have? Greater than, that means it's bigger than a right angle. Well, these are right angles, so we can get rid of those. Let's turn our page. This angle, what is that angle? That's a less than, it's smaller than a right angle, so that one's not it. Let's turn our paper again. Here's my line. Is that greater than? That's greater than, because if it was right, it would be like this. It would make an L. It's greater than. So how many angles greater than? 1 angle. Line segments. Remember, line segments are how the sides are made up. So we have to count my sides to figure out how many line segments. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Don't forget to draw your lines so that you know you're counting each side. This shape has 8 line segments. That means it's called an octagon. And what fraction names the shaded part? How many pieces are shaded? 1 piece is shaded. How many pieces altogether? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1/6 is shaded. All right. Good job, guys. Keep growing your brains.